morning and welcome back to the channel. So, with a long time I've been thinking about buying a pickup truck or SUV just for work around the farm and for the workshop projects. Using the cars really wasn't working out. I mean, if you've been following the cat videos, you see some of the areas that I have to get into with it. There's quite a deep rutted track down there. So I started looking at pickups. Now the budget was low because I've already got a lot of cars. I couldn't really justify spending a lot of money on a pickup truck that probably wouldn't do much work. I wouldn't use it for the day job. I just use the car. So as well as that, I wanted something that we could do a little bit of work on, do a couple of videos, and just a nice little project. So started having a look out there. I was looking at the early generation Rangers, so talking like early noughties, so from about 2002 to 2005. Also looked at the Nissan D22 Navaras, but really very little out there in the kind of price range I was looking at. Forget about Toyotas, things like the old generation Hilux, very, very expensive. So then if you look at the other side of it and you look at SUVs, we've got a bit of a problem here in Ireland, and that is our taxation system when it comes to cars and SUVs. So a pickup truck, by and large, it's a commercial vehicle, so tax for a year is €333. It goes through a commercial vehicle test once a year, so basically that tax rate applies to any commercial vehicle that is less than 3,000 kilos unladen. So on the SUV side, you can get an SUV with 2 front seats. A lot of them are converted here to commercial specs, so you pay that same €333 tax on them. Then the rest of them, if you buy an SUV that was registered here before 2008, and some of the ones that were registered in 2008, you're paying the tax based on the engine capacity. So for example, a 3 litre, I believe, is about €1,809 to tax if it's pre-2008. So that would be things like the some of the Toyota Land Cruisers. I think most of them had a 3 litre around that time, correct me if I'm wrong, and especially things like the Land Cruiser Amazon, the bigger ones. So if you look at a 2.9 litre Range Rover, I believe you're looking at over €1,400 a year to tax it. Now that's quite hard to justify, especially you're paying your roadworthiness test every year, you're paying insurance on it, and then paying tax on something that might do 1,000 miles in a year. A lot of what to do here will be very short trips. I won't be going anywhere very far. I might go to the local town, pick up supplies and things like that, but I probably won't use it for work. I would imagine not. So then if we went post 2008, the tax system was based on emissions. So just to give you a example, if I've got a 2004 Jaguar X-Type, emissions in that are quite low, but it's pre-2008, so the motor tax on that per year is €720. Whereas my 2018 BMW 520, I believe the tax on that, you can probably see it from here, I think it's about 180. It's less than €200. I know it's 180 or 190 because it's emissions based. But if you were to buy a big SUV registered after 2008 with high emissions, and those high emissions, the upper limit is 225 grams of CO2 per kilometre, then you would be paying 2,340, I believe, or thereabouts, to tax it every year. So, just to recap on that, the obvious choice is to go out and buy something that's commercial. So buy a pickup truck, or there is another option, that is a crew cab. So there's an extra taxation class in there, and you could get an SUV with certain SUVs with 5 seats. Now if it was a 7-seater, the 2 seats in the back would have to be taken out, and that can be reclassified as commercial. So that brings us neatly along to this. So this is a Range Rover crew cab. So still got the usual second row seats you get in a Range Rover, but it can be commercially taxed, and it is for commercial use, so it's absolutely legit. So let's get started. Take you on a quick tour of it. Now, this thing is 2002. I bought it for quite a reasonable price, because I think most people, let's be honest, are afraid of old Range Rovers. So this thing has got high mileage. It's got 190,000 miles on it. The service history on it was a little bit sketchy. Now, there were invoices in here that showed that a lot of money had been spent on it by previous owners over the years. It had been to a specialist. So I believe, I'm not sure about the last owner or the owner before that, but I do believe that the first owner had this thing for quite a long time and that they spent a lot of money on it. The big weakness in these is the GM 5-speed gearbox, and I also believe that this should have been replaced at this point, definitely by 190,000 miles, because the thing shifts very well, so it would have had to been done at some stage. It couldn't be the original gearbox as far as I'm concerned. So we take it for a drive in a second, but before we do that, I'll just run through the plans for this thing before I give you the tour. So the first thing we're going to do with this thing is sort out the air suspension, because we've got the usual air suspension inactive warning on the dashboard. We've also got a warning on there about the low pressure, or sorry, the fuel injection system. So this thing is fitted with the BMW M57 straight 6 turbo diesel. It's a 2.9 litre in this. Puts out, I believe about 177 brake horsepower, and about 380 or 390 newton meters of torque. So that injection system, I've already kind of played around with this. I scanned it with my scan tool, and it pointed me to a low pressure sensor which sits on top of the fuel filter. So I plugged in that low pressure fuel sensor, and the warning on the dashboard disappeared, and I took the car for a drive, and it would not drive up steep hills. I just had absolutely no power whatsoever. So when I looked at the live data, it was sitting on a predetermined figure. Obviously, when the sensor is unplugged, it just goes to a factory preset, and the engine ran fine at that. Now, the engine is a little bit smelly. When it's ticking over, you would notice that there's quite a strong smell off it. So it's definitely not fueling right. So I'm going to have to take it for a drive, plug that sensor back in, and actually see what's happening, really happening with the fuel pressure when there's demand on the engine. Sitting at idle, it's fine. It's running up over 4 bar, which is correct, but I haven't tried it under load on the road, so I would imagine that'll tell me that the fuel pressure is dropping away sharply. Now, in order to cure that, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to give this thing a service, and replacing that fuel filter, I've been told, may cure the problem. Now, I'm not terribly optimistic, but look, I've got a good quality Bosch fuel filter. I put it into it, and we'll see what happens. And after that, there's a fuel pump inside the fuel tank, which isn't particularly expensive. I might just get one of those, chuck it into it, and see what it'll do, because this is the big thing I've noticed since I brought this here. The fuel economy is absolutely brutal. Now, it's a lot of short runs, and it's a big heavy vehicle, but it should be better, and I think it's down to that fuel pressure issue. Well, that's one of the issues. So I'm going to have to resolve that, because we have been getting figures of, I think one day I had about, on the display, about 11.5 mpg, which should be less than 10 miles to the gallon US. So clearly that needs to be sorted out. On a run, it'll hit almost 30 mpg, but at that point, when it's out in the open road, the 5-speed is locked into 5th, and it does make a big difference. And that brings us neatly along to the next thing. Part of that service, we're going to have to service the GM Auto box. Now, the boxes in these, there's a sticker on it, which you'll see when we get to the service. And that tells you that the box is sealed for life, that it shouldn't be serviced. When in fact, it should be serviced about every 30,000 miles or it'll fail. So, we have no history on what's happened to this gearbox. So, I'm going to drop the pan and we'll replace the filter inside, and I'll clean the sump and refill her with fluid. So, outside of that, there is some cleaning up. I'll take you on the tour and I'll show you the damage. It's just incredibly wet here and windy at the moment. Makes it very hard to film videos around this place. And I go into the workshop, then the doors rattle in the wind. But anyhow, that's another day's story. Going to clean up the inside thoroughly. So I'm actually going to grab you at this stage and show you around. So, here it is in all its glory. So you can see the fuel economy there is a little better at the moment. So, I'll start on my side. Driver's side, we have this unintentional ruching and this leather. So, we're going to have to fix that. The whole interior needs a very, very thorough clean. It was cleaned, but just not well enough. So, the leather is still quite dirty, dashboard is filthy. For bringing it down here then, we've got lots of plastic, which has clearly been painted from the factory, and the paint is coming off. That's throughout, so we're going to have to take that trim, and just show you down there in the door pocket. We're going to have to pull all that trim off and repaint it. I think it's worth it. I know this thing is a work truck, but you know, I'd like to spend a small little bit of money and clean it up, have it looking more respectable, especially if it's going to be in the videos. I'd like to have it looking well. Then there's the small things like a cup holder that won't stand. There's a cup holder over there that won't come out. Piece of trim broken off the driver's seat. And rear, leather in the rear is a lot better, but there are still some issues back there with trim and little things that need to be fixed. So these front seats, I know the driver's seat is quite worn and the passenger seat isn't great. We might actually re-dye the leather if it comes to it to improve things. So what else have we got here? Oh yeah, just something I forgot to mention on the introduction as well. And that was on the seller actually met me about midways with it, and met him in a fuel station, and he left the engine running, and he warned me not to switch the engine off. Now when I gone to view it, we'd had to jump start it, but he said that the battery was shot in it. Of course I didn't listen to him, and pulled in to pick up some animal feed, switched the engine off, wouldn't start again. So that was the first thing we had to do, was buy a battery. Luckily they had it there in the farm supply place. Buy a battery and a voice scripts and get her going again. But it's amazing the difference that the new battery made to it. A lot of the problems that were there, and a lot of the things seemed to drive a lot better, ran a lot better. So it's the starting point if you've got an old Range Rover, or say something like a some of the later discoveries, the D3 and D4, to make sure you've got decent battery. It'll just throw every kind of warning under the sun if you don't have it. So okay, I'm gonna get this thing demisted and let's take it for a drive. Today is absolutely miserable. Absolutely perfect for this thing though. Comfort in here. No, I'm just gonna, before we go any further, I'm gonna switch on my heated seat and warm my ass. So I'd never driven this generation of Range Rover before I bought this thing. The test drive was literally the first time I'd driven one, and I've got to say, for something that's 19 years old, it is absolutely beautiful. So the first generation of the L322 was fitted with the BMW M57 turbo diesel, as we have in this, and the other option was BMW 4.4 litre V8 petrol or gas. The later ones, the later diesels, got far better engines and better gearboxes. They were fitted with a 3.6 litre or 4.4 litre TD V8, which is an engine that was developed between Ford and the PSA group. Very good engine, makes good power, and the later ones are mated to the ZF8 HP gearbox, which I've actually gotten the BMW, and that is a fantastic Autobox in comparison to this. This is a GM slush box. Certainly wasn't built for fuel economy, and it lets this thing rev quite high between gear changes. Now on the flat it's not so bad, like we're rolling along here now, 30 mph, we're at 1500 rpm, but as soon as we start to climb a hill, those revs are going to pick up, and it just doesn't like going up through the gears going uphill. No, good service might help that along as well, but the main thing I think with driving this thing is that air suspension. It just really soaks up the bumps. It is absolutely beautiful. No, still not working properly at the moment, but we'll get to that later in this video. I've been reading the codes, so I was throwing various codes. It threw a code for excessive effort required rear left, which means it's trying to tell me I have a leaking airbag back there, or a leaking connection to an airbag, that the compressor basically can't inflate it. Then it so the compressor wasn't kicking in. I just kept clearing the codes, so there wasn't always a code present, but I just hit delete codes on the scan tool, and the compressor would kick in. So I managed after a while to get the compressor to raise up, to increase the pressure in the reservoir, and it started to raise, and according as it raised, it started throwing all different codes. So I threw a code for a height sensor. I'll just stop talking for 1 minute. I'm just going to give this thing some boot so you can hear the engine. So we're into top gear now, and she's just cruising along nicely. This thing actually can move. I know people say they're slow, but it can shift when you let it. So we're just rolling along there now, 50 miles an hour, and we're at about 1750 rpm. So it's not bad, it's in its top gear now. But as soon as we start to climb the next hill now, you'll see that'll just drop off and drop off. So, sorry, back to the suspension and the so according as I cleared the codes, it started to just keep running the compressor and inflating the system. The codes changed, so it was a height sensor at the front, then it was another airbag at the back. It just couldn't decide what I wanted to do. But what I did was watch the live data, and the thing that stood out to me was the information on the reservoir pressure. Just got a car coming down here now. So we managed to get the reservoir pressure up to I think about 4.67 bar, but that's as far as it would go. It wouldn't raise any further. And the operating pressure on these is between 11 and 13 bar. So clearly our air compressor shot. Now we're climbing a steep hill here. Now to be fair, the Fiat revs its nuts off coming up here, and BMW is not so bad. The BMW comes up here at about just over 2000 rpm, but this thing now is hitting 2.5. I'm at 20 miles an hour. If I try to accelerate, it's just going to keep revving, so I'm just going to let it drag itself up nice and slowly. So that is, I think, where we're burning a lot of the fuel. It's if I have to climb this hill, you just have to take your time and just come up here slowly. The other thing that shocked me about this, now I had seen on the internet and on YouTube that Range Rovers are fantastic off-road. They've always had a good reputation as an off-roader, but I never actually been in one off-road, and looking at this on its road tyres and just looked like a big soft SUV. I tried to tow a trailer into a field, managed to tow it all the way in there and hit a big wet patch and sank it. And I really did think it was time to go and get a tractor, and the thing just dragged itself back out of there like nothing had ever happened. So yes, it does work off-road. Here this morning, bit of overnight snow, so let's jump in the Range Rover and see how she starts. So the constant resets no longer seem to work. She's starting to sit down there at the back. So I think we'll take her to the workshop, empty all this crap out of the back and get that compressor rebuilt. So here's our compressor, living underneath the boot floor. Looks like this car has been leaking with a while. We got some rust down there. I'm gonna have to deal with that. Gonna have to find the source of that leak and strip that floor and paint it before we end up with holes. So the compressor's held in by I think 3 or 4 for 10mm, and then assembly the electrical socket and the air line over there. So let's get going. So I was a little bit fiddly, but that electrical connection is off and the airline bolts are out, so let's drag her out of here. So that's her compressor on the bench. Just open it up and see what it looks like. Okay, so it's the original unit by the look of it, or at least it's the correct unit. It may have been replaced at some stage in the car's life, but it's a Wabco. So just get this thing broken down, get the replacement parts into it. The kit I got also comes with so it comes with the rebuild kit for the compressor, and it also comes with a rebuild kit for the air dryer. So this came from 4x4 Air Seals. So let's get started. So just going to take out the 3 10mm bolts holding the compressor in. So just remove those. So, just gonna take the compressor out of its case. So, just gonna take these cable ties off. Just do a little bit of housekeeping here, just make it easier to get to the compressor. So we take your intake pipe off, so that should just compress and release, hopefully. Nice, got it free. It's actually very little movement in it before it releases. So, just the pipe out of the way. Temperature sensor. So there is a Torx bit right back here. What's the temperature sensor in? Okay, so just gonna loosen this but not undo it completely. Just a couple of turns and temperature sensor can come out. Gently does it. Okay. Take these nuts out. One more 10mm right here. And I think there's one more hose to be removed somewhere. Oh yeah, just this air outlet hose here at the back. Okay. Now, I guess we should on our way. So, I need to get this opened up. And there we go. There is our piston. Yeah, you can just about see in there. Our piston. I would say that ring is fairly mullered. A lot of wear in it. So, let's look at the piston ring. There is a little pin in there that stops the ring from turning, and also you have to check the orientation of the new one for removing the old one, just to make sure it goes back together correctly. So this little, you can see this side is closed whereas the top is open, so that's the way the existing's fitted, so I'm going to just put this here, correctly orientated, and let's remove the old one. Right, so it's the old piston ring. It's fairly significantly worn. I don't know if the camera is going to pick up this or not. Let's try and get her to focus. May not do, but it's actually feels very rough to the touch. It's pretty badly worn. So it's going to get a clean rag, just clean inside the groove, and start refitting. New ring, same orientation. And yeah, so that fits in there and doesn't cover that pin, so it's sitting correctly. Now it needs to pull in a bit, but once it's squeezed into the board, it should be fine. And gosh, new ring in the kit. Just checked and there's no lubrication required. The thing runs dry. So I'll just get that ring to go into the bore. And stick it back together. So I'm going to take off the air dryer chamber next. I think this is it. And we'll get that sorted out. Been told that it's best to do this as well while the compressor is being done. Right. Okay. Spring's pretty rusty. Unfortunately, I don't think the kit includes a spring, but never mind. Clean all this crud out of here before we go any further. Let's see if this separates from this. It does. Well, there's another little spring and there's a rubber in there. So, return that there. That was a little non-return valve that came out of the back there. We're not going to be doing anything with that, so I'm just going to take out. In fact, I probably didn't have to remove that plate. I'm just going to take out the throw line. And clean up all these surfaces. Kind of clean this out of it and fit the new one in place. And clean this as well as I'm at it. And then refit this plate. Okay. So, should just be a case of opening this up now and changing some filters and changing the media on it. So, let's try and find something to hook it out of here. I think. Can't find my fix set. Oh, actually, this is slightly different. Okay. Okay. So, makes it slightly easier. And this undoes. We have the first filter there, and then we have the actual media. So I'm just going to catch this media in the bag. So take the, just point the camera down a bit further. I'm going to take the camera back so we can see more of this. So there. Spill the old media in there. Again, another filter in the bottom. Just poke that out there. This is new filter in there, right down the bottom. Pour in the new media carefully. And I'm literally on a new filter now. I might have to do this more than once. I'm not sure if I've left enough space or not. Just going to clean this disc as well very quickly. Okay, so that seems to be it. See a little trace of water in this, just try and dry it out. So I'll check to see if there was any O-ring at the other end of that little unit, and if not, I'll try and find one here and fit it. Oh. Sure, there's no suitable O-ring. I'm just going to pop it back in as it is, and pop the unit. Let's turn that compressor. Pop the unit back in place. This little retainer sits on here. Pull it apart again very carefully and lift the spring out. So insert the spring. Okay, let's get her back in. Clean some of the crap out of this wheel well, but I'm gonna have to get a dry day or else get it in the workshop and do a proper job. But we'll just see what she fired up for now. I've requested off-road height, so you can see their reservoir pressure is starting to build. Previously we couldn't get past, I think the highest we ever got was 6.2 bar. I'm just going to go back out of this, and I want to keep an eye on the compressor temperature as well. Just going to select compressor temperature and reservoir pressure and display those results. So wouldn't be surprised if the compressor hit the overheat and cut out while we're doing this. It's not unusual when one of these things has been completely flat apparently. So earlier we couldn't get past I think we're about 4.7 bar, so it had been getting worse and worse with a number of days. So the big question is, will it get past the previous 6.2 bar? Right, compressor's cut out. Might have to clear some codes to get it to cut back in. So still climbing, so is the temperature. Not unusual though. I think it can go to, I forget what the set point on it is. I think it's over 100 degrees. So once it gets to that, it'll probably throw a code. I think the compressor is actually cut out. I'm just going to step out for a moment and just see what height I'm at. Oh. So we're on 6.91 bar. As you would expect, it's overheated, which isn't unusual. It's had a lot of work to do. That can happen even a very healthy air compressor, so we'll just leave it cool off a bit, and you can see there now one of those has gone to OK. So I would imagine that once the other temperature drops below 81 or drops probably to 80 degrees or below, 80 degrees, compressor's back in. So just keep an eye on that pressure. So it should be inflating now as well, not just filling the reservoir. So let's see if that pressure can rise further. Okay, so she's gone out and over temperature again. I'll just let her rest for a while, and once she drops down about 20 degrees she should fire back in again. So as you can see, suspension has stayed up overnight. So I'm just going to go in now and check the reservoir pressure. Okay, so it's now telling me it's at half road height. Okay, so that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. There's going to be more videos coming in the Range Rover shortly, along with a brand new project that we hope to have with you midweek. And we'll be bringing you an update on the Cat as well shortly. I haven't forgotten about that one. It's just the weather's been terrible, so I haven't really got around to getting much done with it. So that's it. Thanks again for watching. Take care. See you soon.